to the Dream 100 Show, the epicenter of influence, collaboration, and exponential growth. You're about to discover the power of relationships. Dream 100 relationships. And you're one relationship away from a totally different business and life. This is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Dream 100 Show. Today's topic is all about making sure that your new business ventures and or your current business ventures are adopting a marketing first mentality and a marketing first set of principles. So I have meetings all day, every day with entrepreneurs or executives that want to become entrepreneurs and they're looking at starting something or they've already started something and they want to talk strategy and they want to look at how do we make this happen? How do I grow? How do I get out of a hole? All different conversations. And I will leave their names and their business names out of this podcast. But I want to give some examples of their industries and or the franchise names, for example, so you can start to get a flavor of what I'm starting to see happen more and more than ever. And it's not moving in the right direction. So on one hand, you could be an employee, someone has a job, someone that's working for someone else. And you know that typically the best way to build long-term wealth is by becoming an entrepreneur. Now, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I know that it still has this appeal to it, that everyone thinks you're going to make a ton of money, you're going to have a ton of freedom. But in the beginning, and often for the entire duration, it's the exact opposite. You have a fair amount of fulfillment if you do it right, but usually it's not for the faint of heart. So let's say that you have a job and you're like, I'm ready to pursue my passion. And I'll give a couple of examples as promised. So one of them is a franchise, I think they're called Rush Bowls. So it's like this healthy bowl that is catered to people that want to eat better, they want to lose weight, have more energy. So maybe you were in the fitness space, you were a personal trainer working at a gym, or you're working as a life coach, a health style coach, a nutritionist, and maybe you're working for someone else and you're like, I think these Rush Bowls are absolutely amazing and I want to start a business. And what ends up happening from there, and this is not all of these stories, but you're going to see how all of them are intertwined. So let's say that that business has, I'm just going to make some numbers up, has an investment of $100,000 for the franchise fee. And even if it wasn't a franchise, doesn't really matter. But let's say you've got to pay some fees. You got to pay for the build out. You got to take out loans for the equipment, signage, lease, all of that stuff. And let's say that you've been saving up. So you've got $200,000 in an account that you wanted to use. So you use that. You paid off a lot of the stuff. You took out some debt. And then opening day is coming and you open up and you're expecting that there's going to be a line out the door and around the block. And you're expecting that all the fruits of your labor are going to start to be seen. And what ends up happening far too many times is that you have this notion of if you build it and they will come. You think that you've got this new concept and maybe it's the first Rush Bowl franchise in an area. And the franchisor is like, hey, there's pent up demand. But I can tell you very few businesses that are in such demand that you could literally open up and day one, there's a line out the door. And that day one line continues day after day, week after week, month after month, and it just never stops. That you literally can never keep up to where you have to open another location. Now, this could also apply to an offline business. It could apply to an online business. It doesn't matter. But what I'm starting to see is this accidental entrepreneurship. And I love and I'm all about entrepreneurship and people pursuing their dreams and their passions. But the conversations that I'm having are typically people saying, I just put my life savings to start this Rush Bowl franchise. I just put my life savings to start my candle business. And I don't know what to do because now I'm 3 months in, I'm $250,000 in the hole, and I'm losing $30,000 a month currently. I'm taking on more debt. I've taken on a second mortgage on my house. What do I do? And these conversations are happening at a pace that I have never seen before. And I'm not 100% certain as to why, but I think that a lot of people they're finally taking that leap and they're moving away from that phrase that I absolutely hate, which is someday. Someday I will do X. Someday I will open this business. Someday I'll quit working for a big 5 accounting firm and I'll open my own practice. Someday, because often and more likely than not, someday is never going to come. So I love the fact that these people are taking the leap. But what is going wrong? And more importantly, what pivot do they need to make? So if I was going to open up a Rush Bowls franchise, or any business for that matter, I would apply a marketing first mentality. Before I start buying equipment, before I start looking at a lease, how am I going to start to market this business? Now you might say, well, Michael, I can't do anything until I've signed a franchise agreement. That's fine. But could you not put some stuff out on social media saying, this is what I'm looking at doing? Do you have any interest? Is this something that you would frequent? And not just asking a couple of friends and family. Couldn't you start to do that before you committed to the franchise? Now, let's say that it's not a franchise. And let's get out of the food industry because I hate the food industry. It has the highest failure rate out of any business, bar none. There are a lot of businesses that are chained that I can tell you that the people are literally slaves at their particular locations. Subway being an example. I still love myself a nice Subway club. I'm happy they brought the Subway club back. And I have this bad habit of asking, how's business? And then I hear a soap op like, Michael, we had to comply with the brand standards. That was $100,000. We're not even making $100,000 a year. So that's just more debt. Like, we're never going to be able to grow this thing. And that's not all the Subway franchises. But look at things like Krispy Kreme or Cold Stone Creamery. They used to have lines out the door where you couldn't even get in. And now most of their locations are closed up and gone. So food industry, definitely a tough industry. But some of these businesses that people are starting, whether, again, it's a franchise, whether you want to start a landscaping business, some of these you can start with very little money. But even though I was going to start a landscaping business, a accounting firm, a Rush Bowls franchise, so it doesn't matter how much money I'm getting ready to invest, I have to remove this concept that if you build it and they will come. I can't assume that because I'm starting an e-commerce business, I'm going to have an amazing product that everyone's going to flood the website and I'm going to have tons of orders. My landscaping business, I'm going to go buy a tractor or a trailer or a truck and all that stuff, and I'm going to flyer the neighborhoods and I'm going to have a ton of customers. You need to take a pause and you really need to look at the financial side of things and say, how can I line things up so that when I open, when I start, or rapidly right after you start, you have customers immediately. So let's look at landscaping. You're going to need a truck, a trailer, at least one mower, weed eater, gas cans. I mean, that's not a $5,000 investment. Now, could you buy secondhand stuff and old stuff? Sure. Let's say you're able to buy everything for $25,000. If you're cutting a lawn at $25 a week, maybe more, maybe $50. If it's commercial, it's obviously higher. How long is it going to take you to start to pay down your debt load so that you're not running into problems? When I've surveyed and studied entrepreneurs that have went out of business, they run out of cash. They can't take on more debt. They're done. They're out of capital. So whether you're putting that $25,000 on a credit card and you're going to finance it, but if you don't have a 0% interest card, that interest could start to crush you. So how do you reverse the trend of open a business and then, holy crap, I'm losing money? You adopt a marketing first mentality and a marketing first set of actions, principles, tactics. So let's work on landscaping just as an example. I would start putting out flyers immediately. I would come up with a creative offer and I would pick the best neighborhoods that I would want to cherry pick. And not just have this little cookie cutter flyer like all the other landscapers put out with clip art. Front and back, I would take some effort and some time. Okay, great. That maybe is a few $100s on the high side and just using your time. You could use your cell phone. You don't need to go have a business name or any of that stuff yet because you haven't started mowing a lawn. You could start posting on social media. Hey, we're going to be opening in a month. We have a special offer for the first 10 people that commit to weekly mowing. And you can put that out there. You You could throw a little bit of budget at Facebook ads and the same kind of thing. You could set up a Facebook page, run $200 in ads, and just start to get the needle moving. Now, if you're thinking about all of that stuff, rather than what mower do I need to buy, what trailer, what equipment, what team members do I need to hire, you're thinking about how do I acquire customers via marketing. That is what you put first. What ends up happening is before you open, you already have a pulse. You have a pulse on what does the market look like? How much demand is there? And in a perfect world, you have some checks or some credit cards that you can literally run on day one. So rather than opening up with all of that debt load, you might still have debt, but at least now you know that you already have some customers. Now, the same thing holds true if you're an established business. If you start to look at only reinvesting in new equipment, new trailers, more team, before you have the customers, you're going to end up doing the exact same thing that you may have done incorrectly the first time. You need to have that pent-up demand. Now, you might push back and say, well, Michael, isn't that what taking risk is all about? 100%. If you have deep pockets, unlimited cash, you can sleep well at night regardless of what's going on, regardless of how many customers you have, then go buy another tractor or another truck and another trailer and hire the crews and then start marketing. But for most of the business owners that I work with, the conversations are wholly fill in the blank. I've had this franchise for 6 months. We've lost $500,000. We're bleeding capital. We've eliminated our 401k. Now, those aren't everyday conversations, but those are weekly conversations. Not once a year, but once a week. I just invested all this money to build this app that's so amazing, and yikes, we ran out of money to do marketing, so now we have no users, but we have this app that we just spent $300,000 in angel money. That's a real life example that just happened last year. We were hired to do the marketing. They kept going over and over and over on the app build out, and they literally had 2 weeks worth of capital to do marketing. That's not going to do anything. They should have put $250,000 in marketing and $50,000 in the app. Building up case studies, building up users, email lists, traction. You need to start flipping where your mind is thinking. That's why the Dream 100 framework works so well. So how do you connect the dots? How do you move from putting all of your eggs in the build out? There's a really great book, I'm sure you've probably read it, called The E-Myth. And that's about working on the business, not in the business. And it was about a baker that she accidentally opened this business. And there's definitely a lot of accidental entrepreneurs. But you get so ingrained in, well, I want to have the best equipment, the best space, all of that stuff. And then you realize we don't have any customers. If you don't have any customers, how are you going to pay your bills? If no one is walking into your bakery outlet, your Rush Bowl franchise, if you don't have any customers to mow their lawns or do their landscaping, if you don't have anyone that's coming to your childcare center, you cannot pay your bills. And yes, this is part of the scrappiness of the startup phase of an entrepreneur, but you don't need to put all of your eggs in the build out. You need 70, 80% of it in the marketing. I am never an advocate for going and putting $1 million in a fancy building and all this equipment and then saying, hey, can we invest $2,500 in marketing to fill this building? Trampoline parks being an example. These are $2, $3, $4, $5 million of investments to rent out the spaces, buy all the equipment, the build outs. Imagine if you took $1 million in a smaller market for marketing, let's say $70,000 a month for a year, even before you opened, or if you put that budget aside and you were just, they literally would see your name everywhere they were to look, everywhere. You're on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Shorts, Pinterest, radio, even TV, potentially. All the streaming platforms. You're ranking on Google. You're putting out an ungodly amount of content to get those birthday parties flowing. Rather than opening up, investing $3 million, having a 20,000 square foot empty space where you're hoping that people start to show up. And I see this day in and day out, and it crushes me because these businesses often end up failing. The odds are not in your favor of success. You need to take a marketing first approach for everything, every new venture and every current venture that you have. Take a look at where you're looking at investing. Look at what capital you're going to put out. What are you looking at investing in here, technology, software, and then look at your marketing budget, your marketing activities, and flip it. Invest in marketing, drive the conversations. That solves all of your other challenges. That creates the cash flow. That creates the conversations. That creates these sales leads for your team. All stemming from marketing, not a better CRM software, a fancier building, a better domain name, none of that. Marketing first. And when you take that approach with the Dream 100 and you take a marketing Dream 100 approach from the beginning and often ideally before you even open, you've got your Dream 100 strategic partners lined up. You start building relationships with them so that day one, when you open whatever business you have, you already have someone that can refer people to you. So let's stick with the landscaper. If you wanted to look for referral partners, builders, Airbnb owners, landlords, Chamber of Commerce, homeowners associations, starting to look at all those. And so what if you started building all those relationships, targeting those people, commenting on their social media? You don't even need the business lock and loaded, ready to go. But you start to build those relationships up for a couple of months. Day one, you've already got business coming in. Marketing first. That is how you win in the game of business. Take some action, flip some of your budgets around to marketing, and you will become unrecognizable. Like your business in 12 months will look completely differently than it does today. Michael Tasner signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. See you next week.